And that kind of gets me to the other piece of my tweet yesterday. They're going to be incredibly proactive to fix their front seven and to put them in a position where, because I see a lot of this.
This is what you're putting on Twitter. You put this. This is.
I put that they're going to prioritize front seven.
Yeah.
Smart ass. Okay, so let me contextualize it for everybody. They love this draft class, but they understand that this draft class is, like we talk about, offensive skill player heavy and offensive line heavy. And they are not going to put themselves in a position where they have to reach for a player because it fits a need. They're not going to take Jared Verse at 21 or 22 if they have Jordan Morgan as the 15th best prospect just because they need a defensive end.
Right.
They're going to draft the best player. And the best players in this draft are tackles and receivers, at least with regard to where the Cardinals are picking early. The first pick, and I can say this with full confidence, is going to be an offensive player. The first pick of the Cardinals draft is going to be an offensive player, whether or not they trade down or otherwise. They know that if Marvin Harrison Jr. is there, they're going to draft him. And if he's not there, they're going to either take a tackle, take a receiver, trade down, do the same thing. So that's number one. So knowing that, and knowing that you have to go into the draft, and this is what I always give Keim credit, is he would try to fill holes in free agency so he could go BPA in the draft. He would just draft the wrong players. The Cardinals are going to do the same thing. Like, the Cardinals are going to have to go into free agency and say, do we have 11 guys that we could go start with next fall? And then that way, you can take the best player available at defensive line or edge rusher or corner if and when it falls to you. So they are going to prioritize, and LVL7, I agree. I think Jared Verse is better than Jordan Morgan, but you get what I was trying to say.
You were trying to play to award-winning producer Damon Dog. You just wanted him to give his U of A guy some
He's a first-round pick. Both those guys are first-round picks. Brad Spielberger told us he thinks that Jared Verse is going to make it into the 20s. All that to say, the free agency period is going to be them signing defensive linemen, edge rushers, corners, and potentially trading for cornerback help, is what I've been told.
It makes sense, doesn't
it?
I mean, when you look at where the true liability was on this defense, like they had to get high level play from non-premium positions, guys who had to go in guys like Buda, guys like Jalen Thompson, guys like Kazir White, positions that they're not going to prioritize as far as spending a ton of money in high round draft picks on, but guys that JG and Nick Rollis are going to be able to coach up and really put the correct calls in for these guys to be successful, and guys that had to pick up the slack because it was just necessary. Otherwise, they couldn't hang as a defense. And that's beyond admirable. That's a tip of the cap to those guys for being just absolute grinders, dogs out there and making the plays that had to be made that weren't being made by, where you needed them up front from your front seven, because it was just, especially on the defensive line, outside of Dante Stills and Roy Lopez coming in and playing above what, the Texans saw from him to at that point release him. They didn't have anybody. They had, like you've said, like an XFL level defensive front, and that needs to change. And I think that they've got some easy moves they can make as far as bringing some guys back for some rotational pieces, some depth pieces. But as far as the starting caliber guys, they're going to have to be active, especially in those two spots that you reported, to have a chance to do what we think they're capable of doing with Kyler Murray and getting themselves right back in the NFC playoff picture.
They're not equipped to win games with a front seven like they have. Like, they did win some games at the end of the year, and I give them immense credit for that. Their front seven is the worst in the NFL, and they know that.
I think that they benefited, but still, this isn't discounting what Nick Rollis did and what the guys who were out there and available. But I think they also took advantage of Philly and what they did on that final drive, and it turned into a field goal. And the
why did they do that?
The playing calling was that got too cute.
But explain to our audience why the Cardinals onside there.
Yeah, so I mean, they expected for them to get points and to have a point scoring drive, but they didn't want them to be able to bleed clock. Right. Yeah. They shortened the field for them. We're going to recover the kick, but more likely they were just going to give the Eagles a ball in the short field. And that's big brain stuff. Like, a credit to JG and Jeff Rodgers for that.
Because they know their limitations. They know their limitations at D-line and edge rusher. They would have limitations if guys like LJ Collier and Lecky Fotu were healthy. Like, this defensive line was limited to begin the season, and it just got more and more limited as the season progressed. But I saw a question in the chat I want to get to. Ryan asking, who's the best defensive player in the draft in your opinion? Ryan, the fact that we have to ask this question, because it's a great question, you're going to get 10 different answers, shows you the state of the defensive linemen and defensive ends and corners in this draft. We can tell you right now, Malik Neighbors and Olu Fashanu and Brock Bowers and Joe Alt and Rome Odunze and a bunch of quarterbacks and Marvin Harrison Jr. are top 10 locks, right? Locks. Today, every team would sign up for those guys. And then there's about 8 to 10 guys in the middle at the end of the first round. You're like, oh, yeah, I could see that. Oh, I could see him falling to pick 35. The Cardinals fucking know that. They implemented a new scouting department to watch all of these prospects. And yeah, maybe Jared Verse is a top 10 pick last year. He ain't one this year, right? Latu from, UCLA, I like him. I wouldn't take him over Rome Odunze. So, like, knowing all of that and knowing that you have nothing invested in your front seven of note, like Kazir White is making no money. Zaven Collins has got 1 year left on his contract. BJ Ojolari is making no money. Like, that's what they're going to prioritize. And all coming back to like full circle of, okay, if we're going to have to overcompensate with our front seven that you and I have joked about needs like 4 to 8 defensive linemen.
That's not a joke, unfortunately.
We're paying 2 safeties $30 million. That hopefully that doesn't present a problem, but it might.
But I'll say this: if you're pressing me on it, and the Arizona Cardinals need to reach for a defender in the first round, say that I don't know what the scenario is, but they have a chance, like the top defender on the board for the Arizona Cardinals in the first round. And if they're not going to take him 4th overall, I'll tell you that. But if they're in a position to select them and everything's even as far as the defenders, like I think Jerzon Newton's the most makes the most sense for the Arizona Cardinals 100%. From Illinois.
But he's not going to be available.
He's not. He's just right in that, like, that's where they're either going to have to trade all the way down or trade up with the Texans pick that we're rooting for the Browns to secure it at 21st overall this weekend.
I'll make a prediction right now. It has no validity, but I'll make a prediction right now. The best defensive player that's on the board for them with the Houston pick is going to have a 2nd round grade. We got screwed by CJ Stroud. Congratulations, CJ. Please take the L this weekend. The best defensive player that makes it to pick 23, 24, 25 is going to have a 2nd round grade compared to the offensive players that are going to be available. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
We know what they're going to do.
Yeah, Cooper. Yeah. What do you think? Cooper DeJean? We got...
I saw a mock, Damon, that had them taking him after taking Marvin Harrison Jr.
I love it.
And I'm just like, well, if I get Marvin, maybe you can talk me into Cooper DeJean. Wouldn't that be a wild press conference? Co-number 1 picks, and you've got a white defensive back and Marvin Harrison Jr. sitting next to each other. It'd be like Bizarro World.
It's a dream.
Cooper DeJean is elite in the return game as well. Man, would it buck some trends? Would it buck some trends for the Cooper DeJean pick? Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner and Jared Verse are the guy is not the Pepsi Coke, probably the Dr. Pepper Coke debate.
I'm just going to do, like, I think Trevor Sikkim is really good at his job.
Yeah.
So let's just go. I'm going to go to Pro Football Focus right now. And we're going to do this live, and this is not good podcasting.
Okay.
Trevor Sikkim, a friend of the program.
All week.
Yes. Huge following. He's got a mock draft right now on PFF.com. I'm going through right now. I'm 8 picks in, no defensive players, 9, no, 10, no, 11, no. The first pick at 12 to the Denver Broncos is Dallas Turner. Vegas takes Nate Wiggins from Clemson. So where's Kool-Aid? He's not even above Nate Wiggins. Jared Verse.
Here's the spoiler alert. Kool-Aid doesn't go ahead of Cooper DeJean.
He doesn't in this mock draft. He's got Cooper DeJean going 15th to Indianapolis. So he has a nice little run of defense.
He doesn't even have Kool-Aid going ahead of his teammate at Alabama, Terrion Arnold. He's got Kool-Aid falling all the way to 21st overall.
Hey,
right in the lap of old Monty Awesomeforth, mock draft Monty, taking Kool-Aid McKistry, who I've seen in the chat today. I've seen it all over my Twitter comments. Like, people love Kool-Aid, but he scares me, man.
I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid.
Of Keely Ringo from last year in his fall, where at this time last year, like, oh, that guy's a first rounder. And where did he end up? Where did Ringo end up? 4th round?
Yeah, he kept falling.
Somewhere around there, third,
Yeah.
fourth.
Yeah. So
I like that.
all that
Dr.
to say,
Strangle.
like there's a common denominator in this draft, and it's the blue chips, right? Which, if you're not familiar with the term blue chip, it's the elite. It's the caviar, baby. It's the champagne for my campaign. The top 7 to 10 players in the draft, the elite of the elite. This is a historic draft class. Are all offensive players. The Arizona Cardinals are going to take a tackle or a wide receiver with their first pick. And they very well could take the other position that they didn't address on offense in the 20s. So what do you have to do in free agency? They have to be able to, they could not field a defense at the end of this year. What he did, Gannon and Nick Roush against Pete Carroll, you don't think the Seahawks took note of that? And they're like, God damn, you couldn't move the ball on those guys? He's got Dennis Gardeck out in coverage. They were fantastic. I trust Gannon because he did this already in Philadelphia. He said, I will fall on the sword.
Mm-hmm.
You can give me, Reed Blankenship, and let's trade for some veteran corners, and we will figure it out. And I will take the pre-existing guys that you have here, and I will elevate him. Just give me one gem. And who is that gem that they went out and spent big money for in free agency? A little edge rusher by the name of Hassan Reddick, and it changed everything. I think the Cardinals will take that same approach. Let's get some glue and popsicle sticks and some duct tape, but give me an air conditioner in Arizona. Give me something that I need to survive. Give me an edge rusher. Give me a 5 technique, a 3 technique, something like that, so that we can be competitive, so we can complement what should be a top 10 offense with Marvin and the boys next fall. So that is their strategy. And I think it's a fantastic strategy. There's no way I'm taking, I'm overdrafting defense for the sake of it just because they need everything. Go out and sign guys, 2 to 4 year deals. I will tell you just as soon as I hear any names, but I can tell you right now, they don't even know. Like there's stuff on Twitter, and everybody's out there and they're hustling, they're grinding. Bo and I were talking about a name before we went live today. I can tell you, they do not have their free agency big board complete yet.
Mm-hmm.
They're working on that this month. So ahead of the combine, ahead of Super Bowl week, ahead of the Senior Bowl, like they will know their free agency board.